Happy Aloha Thursday. Welcome to This Is Now.
Yeah, a judge has denied a request to delay the Keith Kaneshiro public corruption trial.
The upcoming bribery trial against Honolulu's former top prosecutor will not be delayed. This news comes despite an ongoing investigation into allegations that a defendant threatened the judge who had been previously presiding over the case. That prompted his recusal last month. The new judge on the case has ruled there will be only one trial for all 6 co-defendants here. The jury selection is set to begin on March 12th. Former prosecuting attorney Keith Kaneshiro is accused of taking bribes in exchange for prosecuting a former employee of an engineering firm. 5 others were also indicted. And a murder suspect's request for bail reduction and supervised release has been denied. Myron Takushi is charged for murder in the death of William Kono Dahlin at the 2012 sports bar in McCully last July. His attorneys sought a reduction in bail from $1 million to $100,000. His lawyer called the shooting an isolated incident, while prosecutors said the facts of the case are egregious.
The evidence is going to show that the complaining witness was definitely the initial aggressor in the case. The evidence is also going to show that the complainant was highly intoxicated. His blood alcohol level was over 2 times the legal limit to drive.
Evidence will also show, as the surveillance video captured all of this, that the defendant shot Mr. Dahlin not once, not twice, 7 times. It'll also show that behind his right shoulder was the exit to this bar. The defendant could have left.
Takushi's motion was denied and bail stands at $1 million. Trial is set to begin in September.
Kakaako murder suspect Jesse Nielsen has been indicted. The 30-year-old is suspected of killing 63-year-old Yahuah Yan at a Pacifica condo unit last week Monday. Yan was an academic support specialist at UH Manoa's Center for Chinese Studies. The 2 men allegedly met on a social media app. Court records say Nielsen was caught on surveillance cameras. HPD used its facial recognition program to ID him. Then they found him already in jail for a separate assault case several days after the murder. A family member told police Nielsen had been acting erratically due to, quote, methamphetamine use. He's now being held without bail and faces an enhanced sentence of life without parole. Israeli forces are being accused of opening fire at Palestinian civilians who were swarming trucks delivering food and aid. Skylar Henry has the latest from Washington, D.C.
More than 100 people waiting for humanitarian aid are dead following a war-related incident in Gaza City Tuesday. Palestinian officials say Israeli soldiers opened fire on the civilians as they gathered around trucks delivering the aid. This woman said, "Our children are dying of hunger. We go to get a bag of flour to feed our children and they fire at them." Israel initially blamed the deaths on the Palestinians on the ground, saying they rushed the aid trucks.
The trucks were overwhelmed and the people driving the trucks, which were Gazan civilian drivers, plowed into the crowds of people.
But an IDF official later confirmed Israeli forces had fired on some civilians who rushed the trucks and were deemed a threat. The incident remains under investigation. President Biden says the killings will complicate negotiations for a ceasefire. He'd previously said that a deal might be possible by next week, but that may be off the table now.
I was on the telephone with the people in the region. I'm still probably not by Monday, but I'm hopeful.
During his phone call with Egypt's president, President Biden said the killings underscored the urgent need for a ceasefire in the region. The president also said Hamas could secure an immediate 6-week ceasefire if it released its hostages, but many want more than just a truce.
Make no mistake, the United Nations is slowly being drawn into Netanyahu's war, and we're saying enough.
President Biden is facing pressure from some on the left for his support of Israel. Skyler Henry, CBS News, Washington.
Leaders in our nation's capital have appeared to avoid a partial government shutdown for now. The House voted Thursday afternoon on a stopgap bill that will kick the deadline to pass a full budget for the year further into March. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer expects his chamber to vote on the continuing resolution by Thursday evening. Time was down to the wire for Congress to act. Several funding agencies and programs would have run out of money at midnight. The new deadlines to pass bills to fund various sectors of the government are March 8th and 22nd. The Supreme Court will hear landmark arguments in April on whether or not former President Donald Trump is immune from prosecution in his case related to January 6th and election interference. Natalie Brand reports from Washington.
It's a question that's never been before the U.S. Supreme Court.
This isn't just me. This is all presidents. They have to be given immunity. Otherwise, they're going to be unable to act.
Weeks from now, justices will hear arguments related to former President Trump's claim and consider whether, and if so, to what extent does a former president enjoy presidential immunity from criminal prosecution for conduct alleged to involve official acts during his tenure in office.
This Trump immunity case is not a case that any justice on the Supreme Court wanted to decide. I think, frankly, they concluded they just had no choice, given the importance of the case, the magnitude of these issues.
Lower courts have already rejected Trump's arguments of absolute immunity, including the D.C. Federal Appeals Court.
Could a president who ordered SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival who was not impeached, would he be subject to criminal prosecution?
If he were impeached and convicted first.
A ruling by the Supreme Court on the immunity claim is expected by June, putting the former president's federal election interference trial on hold. But the timing puts Trump's legal battles on a collision course with the campaign trail. Legal experts say it's a big question whether the trial can be scheduled and wrapped up before votes are cast.
You're starting to get very, very close to that date where the Justice Department will have to say, we're too close to an election. We're going to have to fold our tents and see what the world looks like after the election.
The timing could put the DOJ in a difficult position, with early voting in some states scheduled to begin in September. Natalie Brand, CBS News, Washington.
We're learning more about the permanent dump site for Lahaina's wildfire debris. The county has picked a 20-acre site next to the Central Maui landfill. The location in Pu'unene beat out 2 other potential sites that were closer to communities in Lahaina. At a public meeting Wednesday night, officials explained that 2 surveys found more people preferred the dump to be far from neighborhoods and the coastline. The Pu'unene site is about 20 miles from the temporary dump site at Olowalu. The county says it'll take about a year for 40,000 truckloads to transfer all the debris, but they might be able to start taking debris straight from the burn zone in Lahaina.
We are looking at using old cane haul roads as much as possible to keep it off the highway. We have a plan right now to utilize a roadway going through old cane land that connects Kuihilani to Central Maui landfill and avoiding Kahului. Going across the Pali, obviously we can't avoid that. But if we can mitigate the traffic once we get into Kahului, that's a huge improvement on traffic impact.
The next steps for the county are to finalize the land acquisition and work with state and federal agencies on traffic mitigation and funding. There is no timeline on when the permanent location will open. So far, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has cleared over 250 lots in Lahaina.
Joining us here in the H&N Digital Center is our Maui Bureau Chief Reporter, Chelsea Davis. Aloha, Chelsea. Welcome back. Let's get the latest on the Maui wildfire recovery. It has been well over 6 months since this fire, but we know there's a lot of housing issues that still need to be addressed. Tell us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Dylan, housing is still Maui's #1 priority and #1 challenge and issue. That's what I'm hearing from the fire survivors on Maui. You know, Governor Josh Green has an emergency proclamation right now that's set to expire on March 5th, and so it will expire if he doesn't renew it. There is an eviction moratorium in that emergency proclamation, so a lot of housing advocates are advocating and asking him to, one, extend the emergency proclamation, but to also close his loopholes, because right now his emergency proclamation only protects people who are facing evictions. It doesn't protect people whose leases expire, and what we're seeing from these tenants are their landlords are choosing not to renew their leases, and they're getting letters saying we're sorry due to unforeseen circumstances. We are deciding not to renew your lease. We need to do renovations, or we're selling the property, or we're having family members move in. And so a lot of people are now facing homelessness. They are living on the streets, and a lot of them are having to move to other states as well.
For those who were living in the hotels, we know there were a good number of them. What's the status on that? Are the hotels still offering to house people?
Yes, absolutely. I know there are several hotels. Royal Lahaina in Ka'anapali is one of them. I believe they have committed until 2025, next year, so housing fire survivors. I believe the Hyatt as well. I'm not sure about other hotels, but I know there are a handful of hotels. But what they're really pushing for is dignified housing, and that is why Lahaina Strong, they're camping on the beach, they're fishing for housing, they're fishing out there because they want dignified housing. They don't want these people to keep moving from hotel to hotel. They want them to have stable temporary homes until their family can rebuild their homes.
Mm-hmm. Now, Chelsea, you obviously are a Maui girl. You have been on the ground since this all happened. How has the mood shifted in the last few months? Obviously, we've seen the stages of grief, shock, anger, but in the last within the last month, maybe since we've talked to you, how are people there really feeling?
You know, I feel like you mentioned, there are stages of grief. And so I feel like maybe the sadness is not quite there anymore. I mean, of course it's there, but not as prevalent. And so what I'm seeing is that people are moving away from the sadness and the shock of it all. And people are now really starting to get angry and frustrated and fed up. And they feel like government has had enough time to find dignified housing for the fire survivors. And so a lot of them are voicing their concerns and voicing their opinions, attending these community meetings and letting the mayor, governor, council members, really anybody who will listen, anybody in the position of authority and has the position to do something about it, to get them housing and get them housing now.
And looking toward the future of rebuilding, we know at some point some residents said it's too early to even talk about that. How has that conversation developed, or has it at all?
Yeah, you know, I spoke with the county spokeswoman, and she said there's so many things that are happening simultaneously. There's, you know, some people will tell you they're moving too fast and they need to really think about their decisions and the impacts, because a lot of the decisions they have will have unintended consequences, like the emergency proclamation. And there's a lot of government assistance programs that are made to entice landlords to house fire survivors, like FEMA. They have a direct housing lease program. And also the county, they're offering a tax break program for landlords to house these fire victims. But what they're finding is that landlords are kicking their current tenants out just to house fire survivors so they can get more money from FEMA, or they can get a tax break from the county. So definitely, on one hand, you have people saying, hold on, slow down, think this through, and think the unintended consequences too. But there's also a large group of people who are saying, this is all happening too slow and we need to act sooner and decisions need to be made faster.
Well, sounds like we definitely need to find a balance in this going forward. Our Maui Bureau Chief Reporter Chelsea Davis joining us here in the H&N Digital Center. Chelsea, thank you so much.
Thank you.
The Department of Education has addressed the recent threats to Maui school campuses. In a letter sent to all families in the Baldwin, Kekaulike, Kulani-Hako'i Maui complex area, Superintendent Keith Hayashi says he takes threats of any kind seriously. He added the department is working alongside law enforcement agencies to thoroughly investigate each instance and ensure that the campuses remain safe for learning. Nearly 9 years after a construction contract was first awarded, a highway bridge project in Leeward, Oahu may be nearing completion. Area residents have been complaining about traffic caused by the rebuilding of the Ma'i Palaoa Bridge in Ma'ili. When work first began, the bridge on Farrington Highway was considered to be one of the most dangerous bridges in the state.
You can ask anybody around here from this side. That's what we've been wondering. I wonder when these things will be done.
I try to explain to folks that if we didn't do it now, we faced losing one of the main arteries to Farrington Highway in the Leeward Coast.
Work was stalled in 2017 when the original contractor defaulted. The project was delayed again when a new water main was added to the design and when workers found a buried fiber optic cable. Completion is now set for June of this year.
A dog has been reunited with its owner Wednesday night thanks to the courage of one Oahu hiker who happened to be in the right place at the right time. Our Megan Ramones has the incredible story.
Ultra runner Sergio Florian was training for a race on one of Oahu's most dangerous trails in the Ka'aava area on Wednesday when he came across a lost and injured dog.
I just went up there like I usually do for my training run. I got up to about 800 to 1,000 feet, and there she was. She was quivering. And I don't know how she even got there. There's a drop off before the area where she was at and then after. So she was in between two cliffs, sort of.
The dog, named Stevie, had visible injuries to her face.
She was in pretty bad shape, though, poor girl. She was very skinny. I felt her shivering in my arms, and I was like, I can't leave this living being here.
He says it wouldn't have been possible to save the pup had he not known the area as well as he did.
I go up there frequently, and it is a very sketchy trail. There's big drop-offs. There's rock ledges.
Sergio said Stevie weighed at least 40 pounds, and carrying her down was tough on his arms.
I gathered all my strength and I brought her down. It was tough.
Once on the ground, Sergio met up with his wife and brought the pup home to look after. He was able to find Stevie's owner through a community page on Facebook. At last check, her owner says she's doing okay. Sergio says he's grateful he pushed through the adversity.
Last night we were all like hugging each other. We were just felt this warmth in our heart that we actually did something, that I was able to help.
And he's glad that his training prepared him for such a time as this.
And all this training I do and all this, maybe it was for this.
I'm gonna get her down.
I'm happy to do it, and I would do it again. I would do it again 1,000 times. So
this is Megan Ramones for Hawaii News Now.
What an incredible rescue
story.
Oh,
my
there.
Heart.
I know, that poor dog. Oh my gosh. Well, let's send things live outside now. This is a look at the Waikiki aquarium camera provided by the University of Hawaii at Manoa. Beautiful day out in Waikiki, and good to hear that the dog was just saved.
Yes,
and
happy
brought
ending
down.
for sure. I love this camera, Dylan. I'm so glad you found it.
Yeah, thank you. It's beautiful. Again, mahalo to the University of Hawaii for the 77 degrees outside right now. Stay with us on this leap day. We'll right after the break, we will have your local weather forecast.
Here's your forecast for your Thursday. First of all, your first alert weather headlines. Breezy winds will stay with us 15 to 25 miles per hour. They'll stay with us not only through this week and the weekend, but all the way into next week, Tuesday. We do have a disturbance that's going to bring us some more showers tonight and also Sunday through Wednesday. Multiple swells are on the way. We'll get into the surf numbers coming up in a couple of moments, but some comfortable conditions, low humidity outside. Let's go ahead and talk about the surf over on the North Shore. Kind of small kind, 2 to 4, 1 to 3 over on the west side, 3 to 5 over in the town spots, and the east side's on the way down, 4 to 6, and that's kind of a blown out trade wind swell. Your 7-day forecast for you, 15 to 25 mile per hour winds all the way across the board. Breezy with some windward and local showers, drifting leeward at times. Daytime highs going to range probably from the upper 70s to the lower 80s. Really nice, comfortable, stable conditions, but once again, breezy winds as we go all the way through this week into next week. We may get some enhanced showers coming up for Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and we're watching that carefully on your first alert weather station.
Well, today is Leap Day. For more on this and why this phenomenon happens only once every 4 years, here's our Drew Davis.
It's Leap Day, folks. I hope you're enjoying your extra day this year, probably spending it working, but I'm sure you're also wondering, why exactly do we have leap years? There's actually a lot that goes into it. Let's talk about it. You already know that the leap year happens every 4 years. That is because the solar year and the calendar year do not match up. A solar year, or the actual time it takes the Earth to revolve around the Sun, is 365.2422 days, not quite the standard 365 days in a calendar year. And the difference between these year types can actually start to add up. The extra 0.2422 days is equivalent to 5.8 hours, so every year we're falling behind 5.8 hours. And over a period of 100 years, we would be behind 24 whole days from the actual solar calendar. So you just add in an extra day every 4 years. Problem solved, right? With a leap day in place, it still isn't quite right. Over a period of 100 years, we'd still be 18 hours off from the actual solar year. So there are some extra rules that you may not have heard of to help offset this difference. We actually skip a leap year if it falls on the start of a century, unless that year is divisible by 400. It's still not perfect, however. With this rule in place, we're still over 25.9 seconds each year, but it would take 3,333 years to be off by 1 day.
A Texas toddler has turned into a golden girl with a doozy of a hairdo. As Jeannie Moose reports, the internet is enchanted with her and the nostalgia she invokes.
She is a 1-year-old suddenly transformed into her golden years. Thank you for being a friend. There's a reason Evelyn Mae Mathis is accompanied by the Golden Girls theme song.
She turned into a little mini Betty White.
After Evie's grandmother, a hairstylist, gave her her first haircut, blow dry, and tease, the result teased the internet into a frenzy of 80s nostalgia. That landline, those padded shoulders, applying Liz Taylor's White Diamonds perfume. Mom and Grandma take their style cues from the comments people leave. Commenters recognize the 80s in Evie. I took a jazzercise class from her in '89. She sold me some Mary Kay cosmetics last week. Most say she reminds them of either Blanche or Rose.
You did? You didn't? Maybe I should have done my own hair. I've been doing it for years. That's why it looks like something you buy on a stick at halftime.
Evie's hair literally bounces. The other day it bounced.
Thank you for being a friend.
To the grocery store, there's a whiff of the past in the wafers she passes, in the candy she passes out. Her mom says the secret sauce is the Texas toddler's large volume of hair and its texture. And of course,
just gotta tease the heck out of it.
She says she was shocked when, after that first hairstyling, Evie
popped out looking like an old lady.
Not old, golden.
Whose hair do I wash next?
Mine.
Jeannie Mose, CNN, New York.
I know, it's so good. I love it.
The second I saw the headline to that story, I made time in today's show so we could run that story.
Dylan is a huge Golden Girls fan.
Major Golden Girls fan. It's so cute. I'm crying. I am crying.
It's adorable. Oh, man. Okay, one last story, you guys. So Dr. Seuss Enterprises is celebrating its 120th anniversary by gifting a book to every baby born on March 2nd. So the company is honoring the author of The Cat in the Hat with their Ready Today for Their Tomorrow pledge. So they're hoping children will be encouraged to read. So families with babies born in the U.S. on March 2nd can register for their free book on SeussPledge.com.
So cute. What's your favorite Cat in the Hat story? Or Dr. Seuss story, I should say.
Green Eggs and Ham.
I love Oh, the Places You'll Go.
That one's a good one, too.
Yeah, very motivational. Has been shared with me on some very special occasions in life, like graduations and whatnot by some dear friends. So thank you all so much. Go get your free Dr. Seuss books. We're going to end today with another live look out at Waikiki.